Welcome to the podcast that goes behind the scenes at Gloucestershire's premier art gallery and museum, the Wilson. In this episode, we feature just some of the fascinating activities that happen in the gallery after hours as part of a new programme called Wilson Nights. On the first Wednesday of every month, the Wilson welcomes visitors late into the evening to share in a series of free events curated by our artists in residence. Wilson Nights' aim is to engage, inspire and share the work of local creatives with the wider community. Participation Officer Ollie Tipper tells us more.
The idea for Wilson Nights came out of the We Are Creators programme. It's a hotbed of artistic talent. Wilson Nights events. It's a place where you're guaranteed to see something different, guaranteed to meet artists, and see exciting new work. The Wilson Nights takes place on the first Wednesday of every month, from 6 till late. It's a space for our resident artists at the Wilson, our studio artists, to share their practice, to gain some experience by delivering free workshops to local people, exploring their art form, testing new ideas. But it's also a space where we invite community groups from Cheltenham and Gloucestershire and other artists that aren't part of our Artists in Residence programme to share work.
When you hear the sound, evacuate the building immediately. When you hear the sound, evacuate the building immediately. When you hear the sound, evacuate the building.
For this July's Wilson Nights, artist Nick Pakenan created an event that showcased a number of his audio and interactive installations on the theme of nuclear energy.
The idea behind my work is that it's non-judgmental particularly. It's ambiguous. I think that's what I want it to be. So I want to present people with information that will allow them to engage with it, think about it, maybe ask their own questions. They're audio pieces based around nuclear power, weapons and waste.
Right. Great.
And the intertwined aspects of those activities, because they are forever intertwined,
We should all be concerned about the safe disposal of nuclear waste. We owe it to each other and future generations to face the reality of our current situation.
So I've given myself an alias as well at the Nuclear Information Centre, which spells out my initials by chance, or not. So that's a kind of way of giving myself an alias, or a third-party identity to kind of not hide behind, but almost hide behind, to give myself a bit more wiggle room for talking about things. So I can describe it in terms of the organisation, and I don't have to literally talk about myself as an artist, and that can be me too, but from a third party angle, which is quite useful.
As well as coming from nuclear power stations, radioactive waste also arises from research sites, defence, universities, hospitals and agriculture.
And along with the music, I've compiled a playlist, which is a little brief synopsis of what each piece is about. So it's something that they can either choose to read that or not. They can simply come and listen and just listen to the sounds for what they are. They might think, oh, is it nuclear related? I think it is because it says it is, but don't know the specifics, so they could just engage with the sound as sound for its own sake. So it could just be a place to come and sit and listen and just to enjoy the sound, so to speak. And they could read the notes and engage a little bit more deeply with the subject matter.
We have all benefited from nuclear activities, whether it is electricity, medical treatments or security. This is a global problem.
Nick's event also featured a polling booth for visitors to vote for or against a nuclear facility.
Yeah, the polling, it's a piece of work that I've had in the back of my mind for a while. It's to do with the ongoing process at the moment in the UK to find a site to bury our high-level nuclear waste. That's been going on. The latest iteration of it, anyway, it's been going on since 2018 to find what they call a suitable site and a willing community to host a geological disposal facility, which is a deep underground permanent containment facility for storing all our high-level nuclear waste. So they want to build one in the UK. But obviously, once assuming they find a suitable site, they also need to have the vote, the say-so of the local community, and that culminates in what's called a test of public support, which is some kind of local voting mechanism. And the other piece of work I've got in here, which you may or may not have noticed, is the bunting, which is the actual piece of work is called a proliferation of bunting, which works in two ways, really. One, it draws attention to our nuclear deterrent. As of 2021, we are now allowed to have, or the government has said we can have up to 260 Trident warheads in our arsenal. So I've got 260 pieces of bunting on my strip. But of course, bunting is everywhere as well, isn't it? You know, it's
patriotic.
and it's everywhere. It's almost we don't even notice it. It's what we call hidden in plain sight, a bit like our nuclear deterrent. You know, so there's a kind of a twofold thing going on there. Yeah, with the bunting.
Other artists are using Wilson Nights to engage local communities in researching and generating content for their ongoing projects.
So Dominique is one of the artists in residence. So she's an animator and a filmmaker and a photographer. She's asking people to sculpt models representing their first impressions of Cheltenham when they arrived, and that's going to feature in her final show here at the Wilson at the end of 2024.
I wanted to run a project about belonging, co-creative project on belonging. So I wanted to work with other people and create installation and artwork that doesn't just talk about my experiences, but that has other people's experiences too. So tonight we're using clay, and I'm asking people to think back to a time or place where they belonged or they didn't belong, and try to remember that feeling. Like, was it a good feeling, was it a bad feeling, and try to put it into a shape. So tonight we got, I think, we had 3, 4, 5, 6 people, all working with clay, building their memories, and some abstract, some it's different. It's actually really interesting to see how people get involved with this. It's the first time I'm running a workshop, so I didn't know how it would go, and it's really nice to see how people interact and get on with it and get really involved. And then we also have another end of the table where 2 other artists in residence are running a pin badge making workshop.
So my name is Genaro Martinez Medina. I am an illustrator. In general, for Wilson Nights, I have been running workshops. So tonight I'm running a badge making workshop where I encourage people to come and draw, and then I teach them how to make that drawing into a badge that they can wear. So the first workshop I did, it was a women's International Women's Day, and so basically I tried to put images that are related to women's fights, suffragettes and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a rebellious thought. And then tonight I'm just trying to encourage people to illustrate something that they want to, things they like, anything that they want to show some interest to.
It's all about entertainment, having a good time. We like to put on a variety of different things across each Wilson Nights event, from music to workshops to film screenings, and we've had talks and discussions. There are some regular features at events, like the Cheltenham Improvisers Orchestra, who are a bit like a resident company, a resident community group. They use the space at the Wilson twice a month to rehearse, to get together. They're both professionals and amateurs. There's people that have been playing all their lives, playing instruments all their lives, and people that have just picked up an instrument for the first time. It's a very, very inclusive group.
and I'm here with Cheltenham Improvisers Orchestra. Loosely speaking, you could say I direct the orchestra. We've been doing this for the past, well, just over a year now here at the Wilson on a fortnightly basis. The orchestra is very much undiscriminate to experience and ability. So we have professional players involved, and we have absolute beginners and people who are realising that they are musicians for the first time. We're inspired by experimentation and by new music, by contemporary classical music, as well as all the surprises that come with surprising elements of jazz music, all the sort of like new music that we've been, many of us have been listening to, and it's just finding a place for it. And it struck me that that really needs to be very open, and that needs to be accessible to people. It shouldn't be a kind of a niche thing. Improvisation is something that happens in the moment. I think there's a need for it. I think there's an appetite for it, because so many things in our lives are fixed, and so many things in our lives are timed to 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and or we subscribe. So with improvisation, we're looking to really play in the moment. That's great. I think it's great to be in the centre of town. It's great to be in a place which is alive, that has an open door, and people can feel like they can sort of come in. That only offers a lot to what we're doing.
In quieter areas of the building, other community groups use Wilson Nights to reach out to new members and engage with creatives sharing the space.
One of the resident companies at the moment are called the Cheltenham Craftivist Collective, and they're a very new group who approach activism through craft. So everything from sewing to crocheting to colouring and poster design, and they're doing some really interesting work.
Okay, so I'm Naomi, and I set up the group with Laura, and we've been running since January, just once a month, as part of the Wilson Lates, and we just invite people to come along and bring a craft if they're working on something. We often kind of have spare bits that we share around between us, and yeah, it's just a kind of an open invitation for people to come along and craft together, kind of collaboratively. We just hope to kind of form a connection with people and a bit of a community for anybody that enjoys crafting and being creative, and also who sometimes maybe wants to find a purpose for it.
Yeah.
I suppose that's where the activism comes in. We're talking actually today, weren't we, about the fact that making anything by hand in the modern world is quite an unusual thing to do, and that can feel
political.
Quite radical. Yes.
Yeah, it's radical and political to make something with your own hands when the value of that labour has been so diminished through fast fashion or low wages, companies, CEOs taking all the profit. So yeah, it can be radical just in itself to make something for yourself, but it's really about knowing that there is a place for everyone in activism, and it doesn't have to be that one type of activism that you see on the news that gets blasted everywhere. Everyone has their place, from the people that are getting arrested on purpose for the things that they believe in, to just the people making a cup of tea for everyone, or facilitating community. It's really like a place for everyone in the movement. You can just drop in. I feel like if it was on another evening somewhere else, even though we say it's a drop-in, you'd maybe feel a bit too committed, and that might prevent some people that are maybe more anxious from coming along. Whereas there's lots of other stuff going on. You can pop your head in, have a conversation, and carry on with your evening, and then hopefully through that conversation you'll come back and join us.
It's just a fun thing to do, and he also people like to do it. It grabs people in, also attracts a different age that Wilson have had attracted. So it's just the point is to make sure we have a variety of ages and people, and to make sure that everybody knows that everybody's welcome here.
The major aim is to get more people into the gallery, and we recognise that a lot of people can't come during the day. Moving forward, we hope to be able to run another Wilson Nights, and perhaps potentially make it twice a month, because there's a lot of demand.
Like any interaction in the street, a little smile, kindness is like a revolution of every day.
Thanks to Ollie and everyone who has contributed to Wilson Nights and the making of this podcast.